What the hell is this Bruce Lee shit?
Boards. Don't hit back.
Man, forget this clown.
Okay, take this guy. Step. Take a step.
What about him?
No. Hey, I said no.
What's up, Mr. Miyagi?
Dude, I can't wait for Cobra to wreck this dude.
What the fuck? Practicing your wax on, wax off? What do you even call that? Thai bro?
Case lands a kick, follows with several punches, and delivers a power strike that sends his opponent staggering back. He easily parries the man's attacks, making him swing into the air. After dodging another hit, the victor counters with his own and kicks the challenger against the ropes, following up with repeated blows to the face and body. A brutal strike sends the opponent flying, and the referee calls for a break. At his corner, the fighter questions why they want the match to go the distance and end with a decision. His trainer explains that it's either that or no one will want to face him. When the next round starts, Case ignores the advice. He lands a strong kick, locks his rival's arm, and forces him to tap out. The trainer is disgusted by his defiance. The winner doubles down on his choice, prompting the coach to storm out. On Case's way out, he runs into Brody, an old acquaintance in the sport, and the two share a lighthearted chat about past bouts before Brody invites him to an after-party to catch up properly. At the club, Case finds Brody surrounded by women. Micah, who works with the reigning champion, walks in, and Brody, despite being married, doesn't take his hands off her. She's visibly uncomfortable, and the visitor reminds him of his marriage once she leaves. Brushing it off, the drunk fighter leads his friend to another corner, buys him a drink, and talks about signing with PFC, a promotion that pays better than most. He boasts about his upcoming bout in Thailand against Caesar, with a guaranteed $2 million. His companion calls the company a freak show, saying no amount could fix the injuries Caesar can inflict on him. Brody laughs it off, says he values the honesty, and invites him to train with him, but the offer is declined. A woman whispers something to Brody and he leaves. Micah approaches Case again, saying Brody needs help, but he brushes it off, asks her to remind him of her name, and walks away. He then notices two men making a call and running toward Brody suspiciously, so he follows. The men find the drunk fighter kissing a woman. One records it while the other, claiming she's his wife, punches Brody. Case intervenes, tries to de-escalate, but ends up punching one man in the throat and kicking the camera out of the other's hand before helping his friend get away. The next morning, Brody wakes Case up with an offer to accompany him to Thailand for the match. The proposal is refused at first, but Brody insists, saying the trip will be worth it. When asked why he left the sport, Case admits he lost motivation after losing both parents. His friend pleads for help with training and promises to pay, suggesting the former fighter might even find a chance to prove himself again. Soon after, Case packs his bag and leaves for Bangkok. There, Hugo welcomes the athletes and speaks to the press about the upcoming bout between the three-time world champion Brody and the undefeated Caesar. A journalist asks whether Hugo still refuses to regulate substance use among competitors. The promoter says fans want an unfiltered sport where anything goes as long as it's within reason, and that his fighters are medically cleared. Another reporter questions Caesar about the assault and battery charges involving his wife, which enrages him. He flips the table, and it takes several men to restrain him.
Wait.
The press conference ends abruptly as the volatile fighter storms off and wreaks havoc inside the facility. Later, Case heads to the gym but is stopped by the trainer, who says the space is for active competitors only. The visitor explains he's just there to work, which confuses the coach since he's supposed to train Brody. He calls the champion for confirmation while Case steps outside. The newcomer then goes to a scrapyard, gathers materials, and begins setting up his workspace. As he works carefully, taking measurements and building his setup, others at the gym watch and laugh, while the trainer looks increasingly irritated. While Brody en route watches several fights on his laptop laptop and makes a face as if discouraged, Cobra enters the gym with his entourage and immediately calls the new guy a clown. He's training and beating his sparring partner as if they were in a real bout, knocking him out cold. The trainer berates him for doing that, reminding him that no one wants to spar with him because of his methods, but the aggressive fighter points to Case, who's training, wanting the newcomer to spar with him, but the coach disagrees. The rough athlete doesn't listen, walking towards the man and goading him, but Brody's entrance distracts everyone from what was about to happen. Brody brings a pizza box for the squad, and everyone takes a bite, while Case questions their decision to put them in separate hotels, but the champion explains that he was added to the team late, hence why. He introduces the newcomer to Maddie, who isn't too happy, saying the addition is only there to share in his job. They agree how to go about training Brody, but the tough guy still wants to spar with the new arrival, and even though the big fighter doesn't want that to happen, Case accepts and tells his charge to go change for a session while he enters the ring with Cobra. While they wait for the men to get ready, Brody tells Micah how much he thinks the veteran will get beaten. She opposes, and in a second, the athlete talks about having Micah to himself, but she subtly declines, giving many reasons why that'd never happen. Cobra is ready, and everyone is rooting for him to tear his opponent apart. Maddie tells the challenger to go easy on the old school guy, urging him to do more rounds, but the aggressive one just wants to prove himself in a hurry, promising to waste his target. Case dodges the first knee strike seamlessly and does the same for the succeeding punches before shoving Cobra aside. The rival rushes with some leg kicks, but he is evasive, and this surprises everyone. The attacker refuses to listen to his trainer to hang back, so he rushes forward again, but the veteran blocks his strikes and gives him a small, hard shove. The defender parries his punches away without breaking a sweat and lands a kick on his stomach. The aggressor rushes towards him again, so he traps him, uses his knee on his midsection, and the next punch makes him bleed from his face, causing him to spill the mouthguard and lay down there, unable to move. Everywhere becomes silent as their tough guy has been taken out without the winner putting up a real battle. Cobra's been taken away in an ambulance even after telling Maddie he's fine. Micah and the trainer aren't happy with this. Brody taunts his man, telling him he shouldn't have done all that to the other fighter, but it turns out he's only pulling his legs and is fine with how the bout ended. Two young fighters look up Case on the internet and find out that he's on a 42-match winning streak. The trainer jogs all the way to Brody's hotel and finds him having a good time with two ladies. He's not happy with the champion as they're supposed to be training at the moment.
Me? The brunette's a man.
That dampens the mood around, causing her to run off. Brody's late to training, and as Case yells at him, Maddie massages his ego, assuring him they'll get him to shape, but mentions that the addition is a big issue in camp. The champion sticks to his decision to let the newcomer stay, arguing it's his camp. Just then, Hugo walks in, and the whole place becomes still. He wants to see the person who took out his man and hospitalized him, giving him a concussion and some broken ribs. He remembers Case from way back, but their last meeting isn't one the veteran would love to remember. The promoter offers to give the fighter a chance to compete in place of Cobra, but the offer is turned down. Brody wonders why his trainer would pass up such a chance. Micah tries to talk to the boss about the situation, with the man almost touching her inappropriately. Taj offers himself to fill in the spot, but the promoter says he has no time to waste, and just then Case offers to spar the boy, promising to take it easy on him. They enter the ring, and the veteran allows the young fighter to have a go at him without making an effort to counter, but the boy still fumbles it, making Hugo leave without any word about the prospect. But Micah thinks Case will be proper for the company. The boss doesn't want to deal with a personality like that, and when she asks him what their history is about, he yells that she focuses on bringing the buzz to the upcoming bout and leaves out what's not in her job description. Back at the gym, Brody wonders why his man would miss such a chance to impress Hugo, but the trainer doesn't care, rather focusing on preparing the champion. While Case trains, Taj and his friend walk up to him, and after admiring his technique, they ask him why he put himself down for Taj, and he says he only wanted the prospect to have a shot at proving himself to the boss. They want him to train them, and after he declines, he calls them back and promises to give them a few lessons when he's done. At the end of the day, the young boys walk up to Case and remind him of his promise. He begins teaching them, but after noticing their blows are so weak, he pauses the practical and begins a theoretical session, teaching how to properly make a fist and throw a punch without hurting oneself. He gives an example and the boys can't help but clap. Calls their applause bullshit. He tells them distance and the proper technique will always give one an edge. He prepares a better and more tedious punching plank for them, hands them something for the bruises they'll get, then leaves, but murmurs on his way out. Back at the hotel room, Brody's watching Caesar's bout, and he concludes that he must do anything to avoid the big guy's power shot. He hopes his trainer would help him achieve that, and this pains Maddie. At the gym, pressmen and women gather around to ask Brody some questions. After basic questions about how nervous he is concerning the upcoming match, he talks about being only nervous about the damage he'll inflict on his opponent. The journalist goes on to ask about the incident at the club where someone pulled him out of, but claims it was Rampage who came to his rescue, so the champion informs them the piece of info is totally incorrect. Just then, he sees Case training and asks who that is, but another journalist confirms he knows who that is. Mentions his name, with the former thinking the veteran lost his life in prison. Case is stepping out when he sees Micah, who calls his attention to always walking past her since the first time they met. She makes him comfortable around her, and he finally relaxes and chats with her. She wants him to reconsider the boss's offer and not focus solely on training Brody, but he reminds her that it's the reason he's in Thailand, and that he'd love to focus on that. She insists that if he won't ask her out, then she'll do it herself, so she fixes a date and asks him to please honor it. At his room, Taj and his friend dress him up for the outing. After taking time to find what's perfect for the occasion, they tell him to get flowers on his way. While getting them, he meets a little girl who tells him his bouquet is beautiful, and after a short chat where he asks about her parents, Mika shows up and talks to her daughter. At dinner, she apologizes for not telling him about the child earlier, but says she planned to share it on their date. They talk about the kid, and she mentions that the girl loves karate, which surprises him. Hugo is in a meeting with Brody and his trainer, telling them how irresponsible they've been for not focusing on the bout that brought them to the country. The coach tries to explain, but the promoter shuts him down. Back at the date, Micah talks about her past marriage, and her companion talks about how uninteresting his life can be, even mentioning his decision not to own a phone. She asks about his time in prison, and he's surprised she knows. She explains she only looked into it online because she wanted to be careful about who enters her life, but he isn't comfortable with the topic, so he gets up and leaves. The promoter thinks Brody is taking the match lightly, and when the fighter mentions he plans to rest before the bout, Hugo advises him to get in shape like Caesar by using substances that will make him more aggressive and entertaining. He gives his fighter a doctor's card and tells him to call. Brody doesn't want the other trainer to hear about it, and just then, Maddie reveals that the veteran has been spending time with Micah. The champion seems very bothered by this, and also her introducing the child to the old fighter. At the gym, Brody wants to spar with Case. The moment the veteran arrives, someone warns him that his opponent might have a grudge. The sparring begins as both men trade punches and dodge each other's strikes. The former fighter lands the first hit, and after his rival's retaliation, the champion lands a hard jab that draws cheers and makes the veteran stagger. Brody rushes him before he recovers, but the experienced one clinches him, asking why he's so aggressive. His opponent keeps striking until the defender locks his arm and forces him down. Brody fights his way out and begins using his knees and landing heavy blows. Both men stand again, and the veteran gains the upper hand, landing a hard kick to his rival's stomach. While Maddie shouts advice, the aggressor keeps attacking, making his target stumble. He fakes a head kick, lands a solid shot to the midsection, and continues striking until the coach steps in to break it up. The victor apologizes, but Brody curses and walks away. The two young fighters try cheering their mentor up, but he scolds them instead, using the moment to teach them about restraint. Hugo is furious to hear that the veteran beat another one of his fighters. He orders his assistant to dig up every record on the troublemaker, both good and bad. The trainer continues working with the young boys, making them climb stairs in different patterns. They complain, but follow along. Micah shows up to apologize for snooping online, promising not to do that again. She says she really enjoyed their time together, and that her daughter likes him too. She just wants to build something meaningful, as it's been hard for her to connect with anyone lately. At the gym, the veteran walks in on Brody taking pills. When he asks about them, his charge brushes it off. The trainer doesn't press further, and instead takes him out for street food. The champion relaxes, and they chat while ordering. His coach reminds him to stay focused and avoid distractions, but Brody says the system has rules he has to play by, ones the old fighter wouldn't survive in. Still, he promises he's fully committed, and that's all his trainer wants to hear. He apologizes for sparring too hard, explaining he'd only done it because the veteran was seeing Micah. He admits she's a good woman, woman and says he has no reason to be jealous since he's married. His companion is pleased to hear this. The fighter says he's turning a new leaf and focusing on his business in Thailand. Later, Brody calls for a reconciliation between the trainers, urging them to stay focused. Matty hesitates, but eventually shakes hands with his colleague. The champion begins an intense training session, following the veteran's methods, doing light and heavy work, and studying different bouts. The authorities soon carry out a drug test on Brody, who worries that something he took might show up, but his trainer tells him to stay calm. The veteran later thanks Micah for her help and support. Creech spars with an opponent who's too aggressive and doesn't stop even after Creech taps out. Jija, who's been training on her own, steps in to spar with him instead. She dodges and blocks his attacks before landing precise hits that make him stumble. When he charges again, she kicks him in the face and finishes him off with quick, clean strikes. She then helps Creech up and gives him some advice. Case and Micah go out for dinner again. She asks about his family, then apologizes, but he tells her it's fine and that she can ask anything. He admits he almost married once, and she encourages him, saying good things will come his way. At her apartment, she tells him her daughter isn't home. After a hug, he leaves. Back at his apartment, he regrets not staying with her longer. A knock interrupts his thoughts. It's the promoter's assistant, bringing a contract for him to compete at the PFC. He reviews it, crosses out certain clauses, and adds his own notes. At the office, Hugo complains about the bad publicity around the fight. When Creech brings back the signed contract, the promoter is stunned that the veteran didn't accept all his terms. Furious, he tells his team to dig up more dirt on the newcomer. During a jog, Brody talks about how the system sometimes demands unethical behavior. Back at the gym, they find others watching a video of the veteran fighting a police officer years ago after being framed for carrying a weapon. Angry that it resurfaced, he shuts the laptop down and leaves. Hugo struggles with the promotion, realizing fans are tired of Brody. He knows he needs a new plan. Journalists later crowd the veteran's door, asking about the viral video. Micah shows up and says she's his publicist, telling everyone questions will go through her. She takes him to a new apartment, saying the boss wants to treat him better for his work. As he leaves to pack his things, they kiss and close the door. At the gym, the veteran meets a new coach, assigned to teach Brody a specific skill. He feels uneasy about the stranger. During training, the man goes too hard and breaks Brody's leg, claiming it was an accident. At the hospital, doctors confirm the champion will be out for many weeks and will miss the bout. His trainer tries to comfort him, reminding him of his insurance, but Brody reveals he's been on steroids, which will void it. Luckily, the veteran, with Matty knowledge, had switched his pills for harmless ones, saving his coverage. Hugo visits the veteran, saying he now has to face Psycho Caesar for $1 million. The fighter hesitates but accepts, and soon TV networks report the new matchup. Matty becomes his primary coach, while Brody offers advice. Rampage calls the injured champion to rant about their resemblance and how he's being mistaken for the veteran. Taj worries that the veteran broke his principles by accepting the bout, concluding he'll also ditch staying principled like he's learnt from him. Micah agrees that something about Brody's injury seems off. The investigator looks into it and finds evidence that Hugo ordered the sabotage. He considers backing out, but everyone tells him the best way to deal with the promoter is to win the match. The veteran trains hard, with everyone supporting him. Brody shares tips about Caesar's fighting style. Hugo and his team arrive at the arena excited for the event. Micah tells him she's quitting, then joins the opposing camp. During the photos, fans confuse the challenger for other fighters, but he plays along. In the locker room, the veteran reflects on everything and refuses to wrap his hands. He storms into Caesar's space and riles him up, then confronts Hugo about what he did to Brody off the bout. As Hugo's men try to pull the champion away, the intruder taunts him about his assault case, and the enraged giant breaks free and attacks. Caesar throws the first punches, but his opponent dodges and hits back at his ribs and face. He lands a spinning kick that barely phases the powerhouse. The bigger man grabs him and slams him on a table, but the agile fighter evades more strikes and kicks his rival's leg from behind. Caesar lifts him again, slamming him down, but the challenger locks his arm and almost makes him submit. The trapped fighter escapes, punching his opponent in the head. They stand toe-to-toe until the stronger one slams him again, rips off his gloves and shirt, and prepares to unleash his full fury. Case still has it in him, but Caesar overpowers him, striking with his knees repeatedly while Micah watches in fear. The underdog manages to fight back, landing punches and kicks, but the giant refuses to fall and charges again. The agile fighter moves with precision, dodging every blow while returning sharp counter-strikes. Then his opponent hits below the belt, punching between his thighs and throwing him off balance. The powerhouse takes advantage, striking him repeatedly and sending him to the ground as Micah looks on, worried. Angry, the veteran takes off his gloves and prepares to use his Tai Chi techniques. With one knuckle locked firmly in his fist, he punches his rival and ruptures something in his rib, leaving the giant clutching his side and staggering backward. The striker keeps his focus as the wounded man charges again, aiming for the same spot and landing clean blows one after another while the crowd roars in excitement. He strikes Caesar's face, lifts him from behind, and slams him to the ground. He follows with a flying double kick, then finishes with a tornado strike that sends the massive opponent crashing down. The crowd erupts in applause, and Micah rushes in to kiss him. Hugo threatens to sue the victor for breaching contract, but the winner reminds him they have proof he sent the trainer to break Brody's leg, and that the injured champion could easily sue him for even more. The assistant walks in with bad news that they'll have to refund every ticket, which makes the promoter furious. Meanwhile, the team gathers around to congratulate the unofficial champion, with Brody among them.